we got to get into it, guys. And I mentioned it in the teaser there. We got a champion in the house. And not only is he a Canadian Olympian, being a former member of the men's Canadian International Sevens team. Not only after the season was he announced being a part of the All-MLR second team, but he is also now a MLR champion. It's time to bring on Rugby New York's Andrew Coe. Andrew, man, great to have you on the show, dude. You like that little intro, man?
That was a good intro. There was a lot of accolades there. I like it.
It's a pretty big resume you got there. You're gonna need a few pages.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fun so far. Let's keep this going. Maybe a couple MLR champions, you know?
Yeah, there we go. Hey, that's what I was just gonna say, Coe. It's only your first season in this league, and talk about a resume that's already starting to add some things to the list. We mentioned it, MLR all MLR second team. You're an MLR champion now. A whole bunch of stuff to dissect here, but let's start with it right off the top, man. Hey, you are an MLR champion. How does it feel? How has it been so far since the championship matchup a couple weeks ago? How is it like? Matthew said this before the show. How does it like living the champion lifestyle right now?
It's good. It's good. I don't know if you guys caught up with there was a parade in New York City. A ton of people showed up. We're talking tens of people. It was unbelievable. No, it's been fun. We played a Saturday at noon, and I think until July 4th, it was just a complete blur. There's a week of just celebrating.
Well, we'll get into that. I did see some things on social media that were a little bit questionable, maybe. But hey, when it comes to the in spirit of the MLR celebrations, I can completely understand, especially when it comes to the way rugby players and rugby teams usually celebrate their championships. Definitely nothing out of the ordinary. But yeah, no, it was really cool to see. I mean, we were following you all season long. I can imagine that those celebrations were a lot of fun. But let's talk about kind of the build up to the MLR championship, because I know for you, man, it was something that I don't think we expect, especially if you see in the MLR playoff or the Fantasy Ruckers playoff challenge, kind of with how the lineups kind of shooken out. Not many guys outside of some of these Canadian guys chose you in their lineups because of expectations of the backline being Ed Fidau, Nehe Miller-Scudder, and Waisake Naholo. And I will be first to admit, Matt and I were one of the culprits there. We didn't slot you on the lineup, and we heard a lot of flack from guys in our league. How could you not go with your boy Andrew Coe in your lineup? How can you be betraying?
Disappointing, boys. This might be the last time I'm on the podcast.
Oh no, crap! All right, we gotta jot that down. We gotta make sure every single line has got to include Andrew Coe going forward. But
exactly.
No, man, you prove us wrong, man. You obviously it came at the expense of Ed Fidau getting injured in that first matchup, but when you slotted in there, man, you made a massive impact. It was something that we noticed from the moment that you got slotted in there in that first matchup to the championship matchup at the end. It was incredible, dude. Can you just speak on those three matches over the course of that championship run and how it was for you and playing and all the whole experience behind it?
It was a bit of it was an interesting mindset going into it, just because New York has never won a playoff game, and the nerves were really high, you know, whether we'd flop again or not. And then once we won that Atlanta game, the momentum really started building. It actually started the week before when we went to New England and beat New England at their home venue, which was the first time they lost all season there. So it really started building from there. Then once we got through Atlanta, which was a pretty tough game, you know, the confidence was high. We went into Boston, won there, confidence skyrocketed, and we walked into the final very confident that we were going to win the championship, and it all worked out.
Yeah, no, I think that was something that really stood out to Matt, Devin, and myself, was the road that it was going to take for you guys to get to this championship final. Because obviously, and we're not going to touch on it much because I know it's a very precarious topic and an iffy topic to discuss. But obviously, there was the complications and the disqualifications that were happening heading in to the MLR playoffs with all that stuff going along with the LA Giltinis and the Austin Gilgronis. But aside from that, it really felt like after all that kind of shaking out that it was going to be the Eastern Conference. Whoever could kind of, will their way through the Eastern Conference was going to be the one that really had a shot to take the Shield home. Was it the New England Free Jacks game that really kind of cemented that and be like, hey, you know what, we're a championship side that can really do this thing? Or was it from the get-go, Coe, that you guys knew you guys had a special squad and you could take it the course? Because, New England had that the advantage of having that bye, and you guys had to go through Rugby Atlanta first, but was it that Free Jacks game that really gave you that momentum push?
Yeah, we were confident all year that we were a championship side, but we never put together a full 80-minute performance, and we knew that. We make a lot of dumb mistakes throughout the year, but it was the last game of the regular season. We went up to New England and we didn't, it was a nothing game. Didn't affect standings. We were, regardless, it wouldn't have mattered whether we won or not, but we wanted to win just so we had momentum going into the playoffs. Once we won that game, that's when the confidence really started going. And then in that Atlanta game, it was kind of a grudge match for us because the last time we played Atlanta at home, they absolutely shit kicked us. Not sure if I'm allowed swearing on here, but
it's all good. Hey, you got to
kicked us. Yeah. So that was a grudge match for us, and they won last year. So all the New York boys who were there last year, they really wanted to, they took their numbers and made the most of it. Then walking into New England, we treated that like the final. New England was the best team in the league. They had the most points. They were the best team in the league, and we knew that we needed to have an absolute performance to win and make the final. And a lot of boys showed up, and it was a big, hearty performance from the guys. So. And then walking into Seattle, it was, Seattle was on a bit of a tear as well. They took down LA to get into the finals. They took down Houston. Who's the other team? San Diego they took down.
Mm-hmm.
So they were on a roll as well. So we knew that they were going to come bringing their A game. So we needed to get back up for that final.
Hey, with that New England game, did you guys have I have a couple questions. One, did you guys have a plan? Did you guys have a game plan surrounding Bodine Walker? Because he was such a dual threat in terms of being able to attack the line as a 10 and also be able to manage the game and also put the ball behind. Did you guys have a game plan? And at what point after you threw that pass across the middle of the field that got intercepted, did you think that, oh crap, I just messed this game up for us? And after that, why you decided to score a try?
Oh man,
there's a funny story with that actually. But with Waka, he was the MVP of the league. He was, their entire offense went through him the whole game. So it wasn't so much. You just have to pay attention to him. That he's their offense. He's going to do what he does out there. He's an unbelievable player. So you have to be aware of him all times on the field. And if you get a shot at him and you can put him on the ground, then you should do that as well. But with that pass, I heard. I don't know. I heard Jace Emery calling for it. So I just chucked it thinking that, he's out there somewhere. What did Joe Burrow say? Like, fuck it. Jamar's out there somewhere.
Yeah,
I just went, fuck it. Jace is out there somewhere. Turned out being picked off, as it should have been. It was a terrible pass. And I just put my hands on my head. And I thought, okay, well, I just ruined this game for us. I just lost us the semifinal. And then Nick Mayhew, our prop, comes out of the line out and he sees me just stop with my hands on my head. And he just goes, just go fix it. I was like, oh, okay.
So that was the point where you decided you were going to get the high ball, where you were going to score the tries, and you were just going to take over the rest of that game, is what I'm hearing.
That was the TSN turning point.
That's
TSN
awesome.
Turning point.
Go fix it.
Just go fix it. It's like, oh, okay. No, but I mean, I threw that, and that was a really dumb mistake for me, but everyone on the team, like the next play, nobody talked about it. They just like looked at me, smiled, and was like, okay, what do we got on next? So I didn't have any time.
You have to take too.
Yeah, I didn't have any time to dwell on it or anything. And that's what Scuds really brought. Like Scuds came in and his sense of calmness was like really nice to have. Because if I didn't have that out there, I would have been freaking out and like, oh no. And then I had to go and go chase the game instead of letting the game come to me. But he calmed me down right away. He's smiling. He's just like, it's all good, man. Like, don't worry about it. Yeah. Move on to the next thing.
Well,
the All Blacks didn't apply some of that pressure though. Like playing with All Blacks, did they make it like not feel like you were playing with these guys, like not put too much pressure on you guys, or did it feel like you had to almost step it up a level once they came in the building?
Yeah, of course you have to step it up when 3 World Cup winners are in the building. Like you want to play to that level and you listen. Anything they say, you listen to them.
Right.
But yeah, they're very good at, doesn't matter what just happened. What is the next thing or the next 3 things that we need to do in order to like get us going again. So that's what we did. I think they ended up kicking the ball out and we had a line out and we had a little meeting as the backs and Andy Ellis was like, don't worry about it. What's the next 3 things? Okay, let's win this line out. Then we're going to put a box kick up and then we'll play defense and get the ball back. And then that's it. We move on to the next thing.
And that's actually a perfect segue, Coe, into kind of my next question, is that veteran leadership that you guys had going into this playoff run, especially with the additions of Nehe Milner-Skudder. I mean, you talked about it, the calmness that he adds to your squad and that kind of vibe that he gives you guys in these big moments. And then you mentioned Andy Ellis, who I'm sure has had that impact and has been a huge integral part about installing the culture that you guys have had with this Rugby New York team, and to mention a whole bunch of other veterans that you have on your squad too, who have been in big time moments. And then, I mean, you add MLR Championship final to the list. I mean, among the list of big moments that these guys have been on, I can't imagine that it was any taller of a task than what they've faced before. How big was it? I mean, you touched on it a little bit with Nehe, but how big was it to have guys like Andy Ellis, like Nehe Milner-Skudder, like Waisake Nahalo, a lot of these guys who've been there, done that, and for someone who's a brand new guy in the MLR, who's experiencing his first MLR campaign, his first championship final, his first playoff run, and having to slot in a really big time role in that starting winger position. What was it like for you to have that support and as a team towards your guys' success and ultimately getting that shield?
Yeah, it was vital. Like day to day, having those guys, just the amount of detail that they have in things is unbelievable. Like we're running drills and Scuds and Andy are talking about, Weiss is telling me, you got to hold your feet a little bit here, put this foot forward. The amount of detail that they bring in practice is unbelievable. And then in the game, it's always nice turning to someone and they just know what to do. They're the leaders on the team. I turn to Andy and Andy's like, we're going to run this play, and they're decisive with it and they're quick and they're right. So they've been in those pressure situations and they get it. And yeah, it is absolutely vital. We couldn't have done it without those guys.
Even coming off, like, you had a pretty stellar season and obviously come out a champ. Anything you'd really change, for next year, or just kind of hoping to keep it the same? And
yeah, I mean, keep it the same in terms of team culture. I thought that's what really set us apart. All the guys are fantastic. We were all bought. We were all in on, confident with this championship run. But of course, play wise, it's always changing and adapting. And we didn't play great at times. Especially defensively, we needed to tighten some things up. Offensively, we needed to, tighten a lot of things up. So, yeah, there's always things that you can change and get better with and improve on. So yeah, there's still a lot to work on for next year.
Now, a little change of pace. The trophy. Do you get to take it home? Like, do you get a time with it, or?
No.
You gotta do
I
like the
wish.
Stanley Cup, man.
Yeah,
you gotta
look,
give
yeah.
everyone
You
a
need to
day
bring it
with
to
it.
Mark.
Hey, you got to defend the house.
Walking down the
Shield.
street with it on your shoulder like a boombox, just like,
That would be sick. We'll put some
Well, so-
poutine on it, and then start eating poutine
Well,
off the
so
shield.
That was the funny thing, Coe, right? So when heading into the final, we did like a little funny thing. We've added this new segment where called Ask TFR Show, where people, our listeners, can reach out to us, give us a question, we answer it for them. And one of the questions that came up was, how does the MLR Shield stack up among the other trophies among the rugby world universe? And there's some interesting one out there. I mean, we obviously went through some of the classics like the Webb Ellis Cup that are looking classic, European. I don't know if you saw the URC trophy, but it looks like some next level high tech thing that doesn't even really look like a trophy. We got our trophy here. I don't know if you can see that, but John's name is now etched into our kind of pseudo fantasy rugby jersey trophy there.
Hey,
but yeah,
one of my big skepticisms with it
yeah,
is the fact that if you got a cup, you got a championship cup, and I brought this up in that show, that you got to be able to drink out of it.
right.
Now, from pictures that we saw, you guys got creative and clearly have experience and figured out that you can drink out of a shield too. So
You can drink out of anything.
you can drink out of anything. So basically, what you guys did is brought the shield up about 5 levels, because I figured out that you guys found a way to drink out of a flat surface. So,
Genius.
kudos to you on that. That's bigger than the
Genius.
championship, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah,
who
I mean,
parties
a
the
lot of-
hardest?
Who? What?
Which one of you guys partied the hardest?
Have you seen the photos of Pongo Heine with those guys?
Bug, of course it's him, man.
He won last year with LA, and he won this year with us. And I tried to get the shield off of him, but it won't leave him. He's like glued his hands to the shield.
It's just duct tape. It's like Edward 40 hands, but instead of
Yeah.
Edward 40, it's just the shield. He's got it locked
Literally.
on. That's hilarious. Make sure you let him know one of the favorite things of this season that I enjoyed, especially with the broadcast, was his little like hits in the middle of the games, like Pago's hits. Thought those were hilarious. But that's a perfect segue though about celebrations, Vandy. Coe, gotta ask you, funny championship celebration story. I mean, I saw the things on social media. You guys, I think we're at one point we're dressed up in a whole bunch of costumes traveling around downtown Manhattan. Any kind of funny celebration stories that at least is PG and you can share on this show that is memorable, or I guess not so memorable for you after a few cold ones?
Yeah, I mean, PG is the tough question, but
Don't get any of your boys in trouble.
yeah. My one favorite thing, and there's always one guy on the team that does this, and it was my roommate Quinn, the other Canadian guy. He was in his game worn outfit, his game shirt, jersey, shorts, socks, cleats, the entire night after the game. The game finished at 2:00. He was in his cleats with his jersey and his shorts and his socks on until 2 a.m. He put in a shift and he stunk, let me tell you. But there's always one guy who does that, and I love that he's that guy.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious. Exactly what I wanted to hear from celebrations for sure. Maddie?
Yeah, it would be cool. I can bet out of him pulling an old Andy Good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Actually, he was wearing he bought new cleats for the final, these bright pink ones. He went home and changed into a different pair of cleats just so that he could still be wearing his cleats, and came back to the bar.
Oh
his
my
jersey and
God.
shorts.
no, that's commitment. That's the commitment I expect out of him.
That's the commitment that it takes to win an MLR championship, guys.
Honestly,
that's what it
exactly.
takes.
No, that's the
You gotta
commitment it
be
takes to
committed
celebrate
off the
it.
field as you are on the field.
There you go.
Now, Coe, do you take like in the UFC, there's a fighter, his name's Paddy Pimblett. He's kind of blowing up right now.
Yeah.
In between fights,
Paddy the
he
Baddy.
blows up.
Yep.
Yeah, Paddy the Baddy, exactly. He blows up to like 205 pounds. He gains 50 pounds, and then he can burn that off, fight ready, boom, drops 155 game time. Are you that type of guy, or you kind of go hard all off season 2, stay in shape? Or do you kind of let it loose a bit, get a beer belly, and then tone her back up?
I personally find it tough to put on weight. So anytime the off season happens,
I feel so bad for you.
What a dream.
I lose just so much muscle mass. So especially in the celebrations, I didn't touch a weight. I didn't even think about a weight.
Rightfully
I tried
so.
not to
Rightfully
break a
so.
sweat.
Yeah.
and I just lost a ton of weight, and now I'm, starting to get back into a gym routine, starting to try and put some weight back on and get into the gym, get stronger again. But the season's such a slog that, by the end, I am, in that final game, the guys are not at their peak performance level because it's such a long season.
Battling injuries in this.
Yeah, battling injuries. So it's nice to recover, settle some injuries, and then, get back into it for the off season.
Right on.
Yeah, so I mean, are you going to be working? Did Nehe Milner Scudder teach you the Scudder step? And are you working on that this off season so that you can bring it into next season? Because I can see it. I can see it, man. I think that you need to add that.
I think I need to add it too, but there's no. It's the Scudder step for a reason. That guy's feet is unbelievable. You try and guess where he goes, and you always guess wrong. I'll tell you that.
Well, hey, practice makes perfect, Coe. You just got to give it a few runs, man. I think I've heard it's. I think it's what 10,000 hours of practice, and you perfect something. Just give it a go. 10 minutes after practice, you'll be fine.
And it's 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right, exactly.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott, Andrew Coe.
There we go. There we go. And looking forward. So I don't know, like I'm seeing in the offseason so many guys that are in form during the year, and I would say that you were clearly in form this year, even though it was your first rookie season. These guys come in, they play unreal, and then they get a big contract somewhere else. Is that something that you're looking at? Is that something that you're looking at the MLR as, or is the MLR kind of feel like home for you?
I like the MLR. I like growing the game in my own backyard. I support Toronto, and I really want the game to grow in Toronto. I really want an MLR team to go to Vancouver. So I see the MLR as kind of, it's more than just me playing rugby. It's also me growing the game in North America. I am signed on for New York next year, so there's a full other year for me. But no, I don't see myself really going overseas. I think this is it for me.
You've already traveled enough, right, Coe? You've already been to Dubai. You've already been to Japan. You've already been to all those places, right? You need to experience the homeland, right?
Exactly. That being said, if someone comes in and offers me $1 million, I will not be playing in that.
Yeah, I was gonna say
there's a price for everything.
Money talks. Money talks.
Yeah.
That's a good segue though, Coe, because I think it's time to kind of take a little bit and Vandy touched on it a little bit, Matt touched on it a little bit, but take a little bit of reflection on how kind of the 2022 season went and kind of looking ahead of what that means for, I guess, this next campaign, because you mentioned it. You're in here for the long run, and it's going to be with Rugby New York too. So really exciting to see you or hear you say that about growing the MLR and stuff like that. So let's start off with kind of just the overarching. We talked about the final. We talked about that playoff run that you had, but I guess, was it what you expected when you joined the MLR? I mean, we talked when you first were joining, having yet to play a match. You were kind of just in the training aspects of it, and then we caught up with you halfway through the season. You were talking about how it's a grind and it's a long season to go, and that was, I guess, only about 8 weeks into the season. But now, having gone through the whole 19-week slog, including playoffs and all of that, is it what you expected? Was playing in the MLR what you thought it was going to be when you first signed on in early January, whatever it was?
Yeah, I think I come from Rugby Canada, so my expectations of an organization are so low, unbelievably low. So it's better than that. I'll tell you that.
There we go.
I was quite happy with how everything went. That being said, it is, a growing league, and it's in its 5th year, and one of those years was COVID. We're still recovering from COVID, so there's a lot of things that need to be improved. I won't mention our field, but obviously our field needs some work.
Well, here, before you move on there, Coe, what was it like playing at Red Bull Arena then? Was it?
And how
it looked sweet.
It was unbelievable. The whole facility was amazing. The field was pristine. It was, there were only, I don't know the exact number, there were like 3,000-4,000 people in the final, but it was so loud in there. Like, I don't know if it was just because everyone was drunk and happy, but it was just incredibly loud. And hopefully in the future, shout out Red Bull FC if you want to, have us again. We'd love to go.
Yeah, if you want to have us, we'd love to go too.
yeah, that's definitely going to be on the mission to definitely get down there. But yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I just, when you mentioned the discrepancy or the differences between playing at that stadium that you're playing in Hoboken, that turf field, for a lack of a better terms, and then Matt, you've been riding on this all season long. You got to give Coe. But then changing that to Red Bull Arena, which is incredible. Yeah, no, just continue there, Coe, about your expectations, man. It's
I mean,
it's cool.
it happens with time. Like, Rome wasn't built in a day. This is a long process, and it's not going to happen overnight. So the league is getting bigger and better year after year, and you can see it by the amount of talent coming in. Did I ever imagine I would be playing with 3 All Blacks? Absolutely not. But it's America. It's New York, one of the greatest, if not the greatest city in the world. So it brings people in, and it brings all these players in. Now it's about, growing the game and making sure we put out a product that's exciting and fun for people to watch. So I'm in it for the long haul. It should be good, and hopefully by the time I retire, some kids coming into it will have a good foundation and a good base of professional rugby in North America.
And maybe you guys can actually get into New York one of these years, so I don't have to cross a bridge to come and see you play.
There's rumors that it's happening next year, but we'll see what happens.
We'll see. I mean, I and you don't need to say anything, Coe, but I did see a kind of out around. They have let, I think, season ticket holders know that it is going to be, or at least they were alluding to that it was going to be some sort of new venue. Don't know what it is, Coe. Don't know how much you know about it, but I have heard inklings around that. Let's go through a little bit of a rapid fire here, Coe, to see kind of what your thoughts are about kind of this season before we kind of look ahead to what's in it for you here in 2023. Hardest place to play, man, or hardest team to play against this season. What was that for you? I know there were a lot of ones on the list there.
Yeah, there's some good atmospheres. Weather-wise, Houston is a nightmare. When we played them, it was so windy. It's a wind tunnel. It was insane. And then as the summer rolls around, it's just smoking hot. So weather-wise, Houston it would be, or NOLA. NOLA also have rowdy fans who love to get under your skin. And Boston, New England, they are known for their fans and how ruthless they are. And they definitely live up to that expectation.
I can only imagine. And does that go for the same teams that were kind of hardest? I mean, obviously New England's going to be up there in terms of toughest team to play in terms of roster wise, but is there anyone else that you kind of put on that list with them?
I mean,
New England was the one.
New England, I always felt confident that we were going to win, and they managed to squeak by with a win both times that we played them at home. LA was a bit of a night. It ebbs and flows. LA, we did not have a good game. Atlanta, we did not have a good game. It's tough to say. Some teams
Dallas
show up on certain days.
Maybe Dallas, Coe? Dallas is pretty tough.
Dallas, I'll let you in on a secret. This is completely my opinion, so not really a secret. But I think Dallas will turn some heads next year. I think they got 1 year under their belt. I think that they could probably be a playoff team next year.
Stop smirking, dude. Man, just take that smile off your face, man.
Yeah. They got to stay away from the catwalks. On their bye week, they got to stay at home. Right? They can't get hurt. That's
we need an ESPN 30 for 30 on what happened that night.
We need to know. The people need to know.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah. That was interesting. So along of some of the other drama that came throughout this year, that was one of them that definitely ranks higher among there. But hey, it's possible, Coe. I mean, you look at what the Houston SaberCats were able to do the season prior. They didn't win a single match last season in 2021. They come out this year, and obviously a little bit of help with the things that happened ahead of the playoffs. But hey, they ended up winning the Western Conference, and they got the bye. So they literally went from worst to first in that Western Conference in the span of one season, with a little bit of a helpful push there. But hey, who says that can't happen with Dallas too, man? And you got to stop smiling there. You got to believe,
Yeah,
man.
all
You got to
four of the teams
believe.
need to get sued and be disqualified before that to happen.
Wow. All right. Get that garbage out of here. All right, let's look ahead here, Coe, to next season, man. I got to ask you, I guess, because it sounds like, you know, the long run is you're going to have this squad outside of Andy Ellis, who assumingly has played his last rugby match of his career, and that's pretty. I feel like that's pretty cool to say that you're able to play in that last match with him. So we'll touch on that. But looking ahead and taking advantage of kind of the resources that are with you now that you've established yourself with Rugby New York and everything, you're feeling comfortable. You're living that Big Apple lifestyle. You're a big city kid now. You're a tiny kid from You're a kid from Markham who's now living the big city life in New York. How is it going to be like, man, going forward? How much are you leaning on Nehe Milner-Skudder, Wissahickon Hollow to really up your skills here? Obviously, you know, having played with you in the past, both Matthew and I, you're an incredible rugby player. But it seems like with those guys at your disposal, really the sky is the limit in terms of how much you can improve and further your kind of rugby prowess and your skill. Is that something you're going to be leaning on this offseason? Is that something you'll be working towards? Because it sounds like it's a huge opportunity for you.
Yeah, of course. As soon as they came in, even with Ed, I just try and learn as much as possible from them. You know, they have an unbelievable mind for rugby, and I'll take as much as I can from them. But I signed a 2-year last year.
Okay.
So I am for sure coming back, but I know a lot of guys only signed 1 year, so I was in everyone's ear saying, "Okay, you're coming back, right? Like,
there we go.
Run it back.
The rookie is making sure he's doing his due diligence there. There we go.
And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't see why anyone wouldn't want to come back. So hopefully we can get the same group together. And one of our big mantras, I mean, from the beginning of the year, our goal was to win the league. And then kind of after we won, we started to think, all right, we made a legacy for ourselves in New York, but, you know, why don't we turn this legacy into a dynasty so that we can, you know, win a couple in a row or get a good run going.
We like dynasties. That'd be nice. That'd be sweet. That'd be cool to see. Yeah, I mean, we've seen it in the past in the MLR. I mean, the Seattle Seawolves, right? That's one that we kind of talk about how they've been the club that has been the, I guess you could say, early dominator in this league. I mean, they've already won 2 MLR championships. Mind you, it was in a different time when there were less teams and things like that. But nonetheless, still well-deserved and still a championship to add to their belt. And obviously you guys come in and you're able to, you know, overcome the experience that they had with some of the veteranship experience that you guys had. Yeah, it would be really cool. Really cool to see you guys kind of continue this going. What's the off-season plan for you, man? I know you're back in Markham right now, but when does the training start happening? I know we're still many months away from the next season, but when does that kind of start picking up? And what is the outlook for Andrew Coe in terms of, I guess, before the kickoff of the 2023 season?
Just relax mostly. Try and fix put my body back together, fix some injuries that I've had. You know, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, just kind of mentally and physically need to recover from the ups and downs of the year. Then, you know, hopefully we can get a good solid preseason under our belt. We were a bit rushed this year, just due to COVID and visas. Guys were coming in pretty late. We only had, you know, a couple of weeks of preseason before we had to play our first game. So hopefully, you know, we have a bit of an earlier preseason so that we can get a solid base under us and get back into it.
And I can only imagine how much that will help, especially with guys, mind you, assuming that these guys do return for this upcoming season. But I mean, you have guys like, you know, I feel like we've mentioned these names all the time, but I mean, they're the biggest names on your squad. Wissahickon Hollow, Nehe Milner-Skudder, they're coming in halfway through the season and they're sort of just picking up things as you guys are playing. I can only imagine the benefit it's going to have an entirety of an off season and a preseason to kind of not only recover, but then to be able to really get into not that they need any more of, you the supplemental help, but just as a cohesive unit to get kind of that chemistry going. I'm sure that will help as well. But let's talk about one of those veteranship. But just two more questions here, Coe, unless these goofballs have anything more for you. But the one first for me is I want to talk about Andy Ellis, because obviously watching that championship matchup, seeing the emotion that was going through him in terms of how much it meant to him to come home with that trophy, his performance, he scored a try in that match as well. So not only was he, playing in his last match, but he's making a statement also in his last match too. Just as kind of a overarching homage to Andy Ellis, why don't you speak a bit about the impact that he's had on your team? And also, I guess we kind of alluded to it a little bit, kind of how cool it was for you to be able to be a part of his career in a way, at least in the last chunk of it, in a world-class World Cup scrum half that's been absolutely incredible for the rugby community.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows his accolades on the field. He's won a World Cup. He's won Super Rugby. He's won Japanese League. He's won here in the MLR now. But beyond that, he's an unbelievable person as well. He knows the ins and outs of a team. He knows, he's a leader to everyone. The way he's taken our two other nines under his wing and tried to, help them through, especially them being American domestic guys. He's just, words cannot describe Andy Ellis. He's just such an unbelievable person. And just to be, a part of his life and his journey, be it at the end, it's been just a fun ride for me. The final was 50% me wanting to win and 50% I do not want to let Andy Ellis down.
And was that a majority of the locker room? I'm sure I couldn't even imagine what it's been like. Yeah.
Even my roommate Quinn and I were talking about it before the game. We were pretty nervous, obviously, but we have Andy Ellis, and that's our fail-safe. Andy Ellis will not let us lose this final. He just will not. And sure enough, he did not let us lose the final.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine. I that was one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk to you about, Coe, is just, I can't imagine what it's like for a guy that didn't even know. I mean, you knew about Andy Ellis heading. We talked about it in our first interview when we spoke. But yeah, to be able to, pick at the brain of Andy Ellis and just to have that reassurance of that championship pedigree, and then, oh crap, Nehe Miller Scudder and Wysocki Nahal are coming here too. Okay, that's pretty cool too. Let's learn from that too. So no, that's awesome, man. I couldn't even imagine what that experience was like. But hey, you want to hear some fantasy rugby numbers now? It's time to get into some fantasy stats, dude. You want to hear about this? Okay. Not too sure if you were aware of what was going on. You were a little bit busy there, Coe, with your little playoff run, but we did a little bit of after our full entirety of the season. And not sure if you heard, John won our inaugural Fantasy Ruckers League season. Of course, he wins every fantasy league that we're in. It's crazy. But we also held a Fantasy Ruckers playoff challenge where we got a bunch of guys from across the rugby community, guys with the LaRue's Rugby podcast, Rugby Wrap Up, got Stacey Pates on to join as well.
Oh, nice.
Got some MLR stats people do. So a bunch of people getting in on the fantasy rugby fun. So we have your performance from that challenge and your final performance from the entirety of the rugby season. I'll let you choose, man. What do you want to hear first?
Let's go with the league first, so then we'll get to the.
Okay, I think he's hedging I think he knows his performances. Yeah. He's hedging his bets. He wants to finish on a good note. I know that strategy, Coe. All right, let's get into it. Where would you guess? I know we talked about it. I think the last time we mentioned your fantasy rugby ranking, you were actually in the top 10, and it was after a string of pretty good performances from you. I think you went, like 3 weeks in a row scoring a try, I believe. I forget what weeks it was, but it was towards, I think, the earlier middle half of the season. And then you dealt with some injury issues, and we were glad to hear that you're all okay from that. So after all that entirety of the campaign, where do you think you sit among the rankings? And I'll tell you, there's a total of 528 players that are in the MLR that suited up at least once in the league. So where do you think you rank amongst that?
Let's go top 40.
Top 40. That's a pretty friggin' good guess, Coe. Hey, you're ranked 37th.
There we
37th
go.
code. You finished the season with 49.4 fantasy points. You were 0.1 fantasy points from Marco Jan von Rensburg, who was on a tear with his
Yeah, he
tries
was.
earlier in the season. And then you were just in front of Slade McDowell of the New England Free Jacks. Now, it would have been a different story, I think, if we added hits into our fantasy rugby league, because that guy was a monster when it came to tackling. But hey, 37th, man, that's pretty good. Having been out a little bit in the season with injury, your little earlier performance there pushed you up a little bit. I'm trying to find your closest teammate that's around you. You're in front of Fa'asui Fuatai.
As long as I'm in front of him, then we're good.
He scored 38.3 fantasy points. He was ranked 61st. So that was the closest Rugby New York guy. Or excuse me, no, I got to move up here. I got to give this guy a little bit of credit. Help Matthew a little bit. Sam Windsor, he was 40th, so just behind you. He obviously had a little help from the kicking, 48.2. So you can give him a little bit of a ribbing. You were ahead of him by 1 point. No, you were ahead of him, by 1.2 points. So you beat him ahead of him, and then you were chasing Jack Hayden, who finished off with 59.4 fantasy points. So
okay.
So there you were among the total
Room for
fantasy
improvement
points
for next year.
Right? You're just setting the bar at a certain level, and then now you're going to shock us next year when we see you in the top 10, right?
Exactly.
There we
Well,
go.
you're definitely going to not drop as low as you did in last year's draft. That's for sure. So
I hope not. I was a bit disappointed.
Taking you first.
There you go.
I mean, you're up there, dude. Like, I mean, I think there might have been a couple steals, and we're going to go over this in later episodes in the Fantasy Ruckers show on kind of steals of our last year's draft. But hey, for a guy that was picked in the 12th round with the 6th pick, finishing 37th is pretty good. You did Rugby Morning some good justice there earlier in the season, helping him win a few matchups. So that's pretty solid, dude. I don't think, like Matt said, you're not going to be dropping to the 12th round again, especially if you're on that same back line. But hey, well, who knows, man? Maybe some of these guys will friggin' smarten up and pick you with their first overall pick, right?
Hey,
We'll
now,
see. We'll
I
see.
have a great excuse. 1, didn't know rugby. 2, I messaged you saying I was taking Coe this round.
You did say that, and then Rugby Morning ended up obviously stealing you and had you in the entirety of this season, which was it definitely was heartbreaking for Vandy early in the year.
He held you above here. He's like, take your boy Coe. Come on, just trade away Peterson. Just come on, you want Coe?
So it was definitely a funny sight to see, kind of you making that impact and obviously making Vandy jealous not having you. But let's move on now to the playoff challenge, because I feel like I know why you ordered it in this way. Coe, you did pretty good in playoffs, man. Among all the playoff players, I'm not going to have you guess here because there were a decent amount of players, a total of 150 one players that were chosen in our Fantasy Ruckers playoff challenge. You were dang close, and it was ultimately that second match performance. And mind you, there were a lot of things that aren't captured within the fantasy rugby stats that we saw you do. But hey, you were ranked 18th, man, in the top 20 for the Fantasy Ruckers playoff challenge, a total of 8 points. You were just behind Nehe Milner-Scudder. 8.1 fantasy points for him, and just in front of Nick Mayhew, who scored 5.7 fantasy points on your squad. So hey,
that's good for a prop. Good for Nick for getting up there.
I think it was one of those set piece tries that you guys had. I will say that that reminds me of, I think Rugby New York scored one of the nicest forward set piece, not forward set piece, but forward transitional plays in the entire year. So it had me thinking, who needs Andrew Coe? Who needs Nehe Milner-Scudder? Who needs Wysocki?
You got Nick Mayhew on the wing.
Right, exactly. Going down. That was absolutely incredible. When you saw that, what was your reaction to that? That was just something that I came up with that was friggin' sweet that I saw.
Yeah, I honestly didn't take it into account at the time, and then I saw it after. I was like, oh, they actually did some things out there. Nice, boys.
Yeah, I saw on Reddit that some people were saying that it was one of the nicest forward pack plays that they've seen in the entire MLR for at least the span that they've been watching it. So, pretty cool stuff,
We're
man.
gonna have to hear about that all year next year.
Yeah.
That's right. Bragging
Yeah,
rights, baby.
exactly. Look at this forward pack; they can do it all. We don't need to hear. We don't need to hear Andrew Coe's name or anything like that. Scoring tries, who needs them? But yeah, man. Hey, that's not too bad, dude. 37th and 18th for the fantasy rugby finish. I know a lot of guys were happy to select you. Obviously, a lot of Canadian help. I know the LaRouge Rugby podcast. They went all Canadian players. They were picking Michael Smith. They were picking you. They were making sure that they got all the Canadians into your lineup, and it paid off. And hey, if it was. Of course, it was John who ended up winning the Fantasy Ruckers Playoff Challenge 2 on top of that.
He didn't pick you either.
Year.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. He didn't pick you either. He actually went with Ed Feedow, so you can also talk to him about that. But what's it called? If Matt had gone with you instead of Waisake Naholo, he may have been the one that have won this Fantasy Ruckers Playoff Challenge. So
If you
there is
told
that.
us, beforehand, give us some inside information that Emery was going to be kicking off the tee, I would have also won. But hey, that's all right.
Yeah, so that is funny. And the last thing here, Coe, that we're going to finish off with, we mentioned it halfway through this segment, but it is a segment that we brought up here called Ask TFR Show. We asked our fans, we asked the people listening what they want to know from you. They wanted to know, what does Andrew Coe, what question do they want to ask Andrew Coe? And the most popular one, the one that they wanted to know the answer to was, what was your most memorable moment in the entirety of the 2022 MLR season? What was that for you, man? I mean, I bet you there's a whole bunch in there that you could pick out of.
There's a lot that come to mind, but I'm gonna pick outside of rugby. Well, it happened on a rugby field, but we try to do fun things every Monday or Tuesday when we go in, just to spice up the monotony of training. And just week in and week out, we had Caleb Geiger as our sheriff. So if anybody screwed up, Caleb would have fines. And sure enough, week in and week out, the same guy, won't mention any names, don't want to throw him under the bus, but he had a fine every single week. And we were all waiting for it all week. And then sure enough, Caleb gets up there, calls him up. He has to roll the dice, do a punishment. But it's just the everyday sort of things throughout the year that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah, that's cool to hear, man. It looked like you were having a lot of fun. I mean, I feel like we could see it through your play on the field. It just seems like you were having a really, really good time, and we're really happy for you, man. And we couldn't be more pumped up for you when we saw you not only getting a crack at making that starting lineup in those playoff championship lineups, but then also making a massive impact. We were jumping up and down, yelling at the TV. I'm even at work having it in the background. I'm like, oh crap, dude, there's Coe going. I'm like, dude, I know that guy and stuff. It was really cool to see the success that you had this season. Especially with us having that conversation with you earlier in the year about kind of your expectations heading into the MLR. We talked about it before the show, Coe. You really couldn't have picked a better team. You talked about being your own agent. It sounds like you got a little bit of business prowess too, man, because it sounds like you picked the right spot. Yeah, Lamar, exactly. So, man, yeah, on behalf of Matt, on behalf of Vanny, I'm sure they'll say the same thing, man. It was a blast to watch you all season long, and really, it was really cool to see you lift up that shield and bring home the MLR
Thanks
championship.
for having me on, guys. I love what you guys are doing with fantasy, and I'm happy to come on anytime you guys want me on. I mean, it's all about growing the game.
We got to start drafting you first, and then you'll come on, right? Yeah, that was the mistake we made.
Actually, yeah, that's fair.
That will be the condition on our contract that we sign with you. As long as we continue to pick you in our fantasy lineups, you'll come on the show.
The NIL deal I'll sign.
Exactly. Yeah, name, image, likeness for sure. Well, hey, man, again, appreciate you coming on the show. We'll have you on again soon, man. Enjoy the off season. Enjoy your time up with the family up in the Great White North, and we'll definitely speak to you soon, man.
Yeah, nice talking to you guys.
See you, Coe.
Peace.